to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni!
Fires upfield into the end zone, and it's caught! Jelani Woods! Touchdown! Indy!
Yes. 43-point night for Tyrese Halliburton.
How do you like that, partner?
Renew now, drives in low, throws up a shot. It doesn't go. Tipped up and in by Anthony Leal. Indiana takes the lead.
It's pretty simple. I win. Google me.
Now, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hello, everybody. Welcome aboard Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you here on this Tuesday. Thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate you as always. Brought to you, of course, by Andy Moore Honda. Get the best in new and used vehicles at andymoorehonda.com. Just get more to your door and go to andymoorehonda.com. As well as the Autograph app, of course, where Unreal fans get unreal rewards, the first app to track and reward fans for loving what they love most, turning passion into access and experiences. Just download the Autograph app in either Apple App Store or Google Play today. Autograph, where unhinged fandom means unreal rewards. Just go to the link. It's link.ag.fan/ISB media. You got to have that on there. And I'm telling you, they have offers for tickets to events that are crazy inexpensive. It's wild, but you got to be on the Autograph app. Appreciate you. I hope everybody's doing well on this Tuesday. It was a fun Monday for us, of course. Myself and Mitchell Page down supporting the Evansville chapter of the IU Alumni Association and their scholarship golf outing. It started to get warm down there, but it was fun for us. We ended up winning, and that's mostly to the credit of Mitchell. I had a few important shots, but Gritty was a part of that, so congratulations to her and Kyle King, who also worked on putting that together down there. She said she'd rather be at Sultan's Run this morning. Yeah, this morning, not this afternoon. I don't know that I'd want to be anywhere besides in an air conditioning unit this afternoon. I hope everyone is doing well. Hitting us up on the Andy Moore hotline. Appreciate each and every one of you. Plenty to get to today on the program. Mike DeCourcy joins us as usual. Greg Rakestraw will make his normal Monday appearance today, since he was not able to do so yesterday. Chronic Hoosier along as well. And plenty to talk about. It was a busy weekend, and on the AAU basketball scene, of course, we had a busy weekend at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. You had the wrap up to the PGA Championship. There was just tons and tons going on. It doesn't seem to slow down, man. But we've still got the month of May, and this is Indy Week. And I kind of copied this off of Tony Kornheiser from Pardon the Interruption. But got my
I'm not gonna lie, I love that. I love that you took a little page out of the Tony Kornheiser book and they're waving the flag. I love that.
But it's not. See, this is not a Canadian flag. This is the
correct
checkered flag from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, baby.
I like that though.
Indy Week, and looking forward to all that goes along with that. It's just there's not many sporting events that need a month of, I don't want to say build up, but work up to it. Yes, the Pacers. Thank you, David. Daggone it. The Pacers. How did I forget about that? But Indy is, and it's not building up. It's just so much going on. You've got qualifications, practice, and they've done such a great job of making it interesting. Qualifications used to not be that big of a deal. Just run it and see what happens. Well, now it's the Fast Five. Who makes it into the Fast Five? And then who makes it into the Fast Six to go after the pole? So they've been able to come up with ways to make it exciting and looking forward to that. Shout out to Dave First and his crew there. Dave, the vice president of communications for IndyCar. Actually, I was an intern with Dave at WLKY Channel 32 in Louisville way back in the day. And speaking of which, Fred Calgill, who has been the sports director there for umpteen years, probably doesn't even want me to say how many. He is retiring, and today actually is a luncheon that they are having down at WLKY that I'm going to try to make. But that's how me and Dave met. There was also another guy that, for those of you down in the Evansville area, weatherman Wayne Hart, his nephew, John Hart Tongue, was also in this same quote unquote class of interns. There was 3 of us, Dave, myself, and John Hartung. He went on to become a sports anchor out in Los Angeles, actually a weekend sports anchor, but he also hosts the game recap shows for the Los Angeles Dodgers. He's a weekend news anchor for them now. And then there's me. So, yeah, pretty fun class of guys that to be able to go through there with. And but Fred is retiring. Congratulations to Fred. And for those of you that listen to us down in the southern Indiana, Louisville area, you're very familiar with whom he is. He has been with WLKY for quite some time. He's being not replaced, but taken over for him is Kent Taylor, who also have a long relationship with. While I was interning at WLKY, I got an overnight job there anchoring overnight news. While I was in school, taking summer classes, I'd left IU to go down to home. That's home, of course, and was taking a full load of summer school at IUS, Indiana University Southeast in New Albany. And so I'm on TV at night, going to school at day, reporting in between. And it was that was a wild and wacky time back then. But to have all those guys there, it was a blast. Talking about getting to do some great things. I got to meet, daggone it. I'm drawing a daggone blank. Played with Jackie Robinson, Pee Wee Reese. He's from Louisville, played second base for the Brooklyn Dodgers. He's the guy that went over and put his arm around Jackie. And, they were out on the field and was doing it on purpose to kind of quell the racial things that were going on back then. But I got to go to Pee Wee Reese's home, and we're down in his basement. He lived at a modest ranch house out in outskirts of Louisville. But I will never forget, this is back before the days of social media, when everybody is posting every single little thing and cameras all over your phones. He had these, I remember 2 rows of bats, like probably, 7 to 8 bats in each rack. These bats were from the World Series against the Yankees, all of these great, unbelievable events that took place. It was wild. So I'm very, very fortunate. Also got to cover Howard Schnellenberger while I was there. He was a character. I was at the press conference where the immortal words, "The University of Louisville is on a collision course for the national championship. The only variable is time," were uttered. And unless you live in that area, you probably don't know that. But Howard was he was something, man. He built that program down there out of pretty much nothing. And of course, former coach at Miami, where he won a national championship amongst other places. Not in the Hall of Fame. You want to know something unique? Howard Schnellenberger is not even eligible for the Hall of Fame. And John Boy, a little lesson for you, since you are familiar with that area. Do you know why Howard Schnellenberger is not eligible for the Hall of Fame?
I know I've heard this before. I feel like it has something to do with what he did while he was in Miami. Is that correct?
No, it
No?
actually everywhere else. Well,
Okay.
somewhat. You have to have a winning percentage of 50% or better.
Really?
And his winning percentage, because he went to Miami was a junk hole when he went there. It was a junk hole. And they got nobody coming to games and yada yada. But you know what he turned that into? I mean, he turned that around from a junk hole to a national title winner. It's unbelievable what he did there. He goes to Louisville. Guess what they were? A junk hole. I mean, they were playing down at the old Cardinal Stadium, which was another junk hole. And he fought to get a new stadium. That didn't happen before he left, which he left kind of unexpectedly. I forget the year now. Was it like 95, 96 to go to Oklahoma? And that was the only big time job that was big time at the time that he ever had. But he lasted 1 year there. There was something that didn't jive with the folks down there. Now, his wife was a character. She was always a part of the deal, which was always kind of funny, but that's beside the point. But so then he goes to Florida Atlantic. Is it Florida Atlantic? I think. But they did not even have a program. So he starts a program. And so his record on itself is not very, very good. Well, I shouldn't say that. It's less than 500. But it's less than 500 because he started the program at Miami. He gave Louisville a program. He completely started a program from scratch at FAU. So, but because of all of that, he's not eligible for the Hall of Fame, which is rather sad, to be honest with you, because he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. I don't think there's any question to that. You can't do the things that he did. But those were some of the great times and the fun days that I got to spend in Louisville. So enjoyed that. And that's thanks to Fred Calgill at WLKY there. So who is retiring. And so hopefully we'll be seeing him later on today. I did not know that Schnelly was born in Indiana either, Harry. If I did, I forgot. Where was he born? See, more great trivia. Love learning that.
Here we go. He was born in St. Meinrad.
Oh, that's down by southern Indiana, and it's down in the southwestern part of the state, right? Down by the big church.
Yeah, pretty close to Evansville.
I don't know that I knew that. I mean, I don't know that I knew that. I'll tell you somebody else that was born in Indiana that you know mostly from Kentucky. Colonel Sanders. Colonel Sanders was born in Henryville, Indiana, which is also in southern Indiana. For those of you that don't know, right off of I-65, or surrounds I-65 between, say, Scottsburg and Clarksville, down in that portion, towards Bubba's 33, of course. But Colonel Sanders, born in Indiana. So, yeah, but I did not know that about. I may have known that a long time ago, but forgot. Yes, the monastery. That's what I was trying to think of. Yeah, unbelievable spot. Hey, man, we've got a lot coming up today on the program. Thank you so much for being with us. It's starting out as a beautiful day. It's going to stay beautiful. It's just going to get warm. And isn't that how it always is? It just kind of goes from 0 to 100. That's okay. We can handle
90s today. It's summer-like weather as we are only a month away from the official start of summer.
Wait a minute. What about the official start of spring? Whatever
that was 2 months ago.
Man, okay. That doesn't seem right. Wait a minute. That would have been February. We're in May still, right?
Yeah, March 20th or March 21st, one of the two. That was the first day of spring. We're 2 months into spring.
Okay, I'm not going to be one of those people that ends up on Jimmy Kimmel. I saw the other night he ran a collection of a collage of news anchors. I can't believe it's May. I can't believe it's May. I can't believe it's May 1st. Man, can you believe it's May 1st? It was one after the other. And I'm like, okay, no, I'm not being like that. Hey, man, we appreciate everybody being with us. Like I said, we've got a great show coming up. Mike DeCourcy joins us next. Greg Rakestraw on the program today, as well as Chronic Hoosier. Back with all of that and more, brought to you by the Autograph app. Don't forget, go to either the Apple App Store or Google Play Store. Download the Autograph app and use ISB Media as your code. Autograph is where real fans get unreal rewards. The first app to track and reward fans for loving what they love most, turning passion into access and experiences. And this app brings everything. If you're an Indiana fan, it's all right there together. Various portions to pull together. So just trying to read what Brian says. Oh, yeah. Well, time slips away, baby. We've got Mike DeCourcy up next, and we're back with that right after this break.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market for... Good day, Mike.
What's going on, Jim?
How are you, brother?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I got a great night's sleep, which is a rarity for me. I played in a golf outing for the IU Alumni Association in Evansville yesterday with Mitchell Page, and it was warm, and I was already tired from working all weekend at a camp on Sunday in the Rivals camp on Sunday out on the turf for 3 hours, which seems like a 24-hour period I'll never get back. Indianapolis the day before that, which was awesome. I would love to have been at Indianapolis on Sunday. And I was talking earlier about how they have been able to, much like how the NFL and the NBA has turned the draft into an experience, a TV deal that used to be nobody cared about. Man, everything leading up to Indy is they've been able to make it exciting, especially qualifying. You've got the first round of qualifiers and who makes it into the Fast 12, and then the Fast 6 on who's going to get to go for pole. I mean, it's really they've made it exciting, and it was fun to watch.
Yeah, I think they definitely have improved the qualifying process without a doubt. I was there last year on Sunday for the Fast 12 or whatever, and it was really a good experience. I had family in, and they wanted to go to the Speedway, and I honestly think more people should take advantage of it. It's a great day.
I said yesterday, if I was just a fan and had to choose, I would go to every event leading up to the race instead of the race.
Mm-hmm.
And it, because you can get in and out without worrying about,
and that was part of it. Yeah.
Without worrying about 300,000 other people being there. But one of the funnest places is just to go behind the pagoda. They have a really large screen TV there. It's a kind of a garden. I don't want to call it a garden area, but for lack of a better word, a garden area where you sit back there. There's vendors back there.
Yeah, it's almost like a food court, right? You know,
beer, food court right there available to you. You actually have some shade if you can get around those trees. And I tell you, I've been back there a few times myself and said, I kind of like this spot as well as anything, because other than that, you're either in the press area, which
all right, here we go.
I hate.
Just a few seconds.
Your butcher, baker, and fish house, no matter where you live.
This segment is brought to you by the Chop Shop, home of the Indiana football and men's basketball coaches shows. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back on this beautiful Tuesday. Indiana Sports Beat Radio here, joined by Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News and Big Ten Network. Make sure you are following Mike and all of his content at the Sporting News. If not, you're missing out on some of the best there is. Mike, how are you, sir? How was your weekend?
It was great. It was no complaints. I didn't have as exciting a weekend as you did, but I did get to sit and watch the Pacers obliterate the Knicks on Sunday afternoon, and that was really something.
Well, exciting and busy can sometimes be two different things. I think I would have swapped spots with you and maybe enjoyed it just as much. But I've got to give Bob Kravitz credit because Bob's not on until Thursday. But last week, and I think it was after Game 4, but I spoke to him after Game 5, and I'm like, oh, wow, man, that's a legitimate beat down there. And he was like, I picked him to win in 7 games anyway. And rather that calmly about it. And that's exactly what happened. But yeah, to go into New York after getting beat down like they had in the last time that they were there. And of course you win at home, but everyone kind of expected them to win at home, but to go to New York and win in 7 games, reminiscent of back in the day with Reggie. But what a fun and exciting and probably surprising and disappointing to the NBA that the Pacers are going to be playing Boston and not a team from New York.
Yeah, I mean, I think having Knicks Celtics would have been big business for them, and I think that there was a feeling about the attractiveness of that on the part of a lot of different entities would have preferred to see that. But one of the things that about modern coverage of these sports, Jim, is that at the end of the day, like, why should we care? Like, why should anybody care whether the networks are happy with the matchup? Unless you work there. It's just like, I don't care if ESPN is happy. I've never worked there. I like a lot of people there, but they're going to turn on the lights tomorrow if they have the Pacers in the game instead of the Knicks. So, okay, let's forget about that. And let's just move along to what matters, which is the game, which is how I will admit that I thought that the Pacers could win the series. But when they missed the 2 opportunities, especially Game 1, but then also to an extent in Game 2, I thought it was going to be really hard for them to get Game 5 and especially Game 7. But one of the things that Rick Carlisle did brilliantly in the series was use his superior depth and use the superior physicality and really wear down the Knicks by the end of that series. They were clearly worn, and they tried in that early third quarter spurt to try to muster something. But even at that, when they had all the momentum, they just didn't have any juice anymore. And the Pacers just pumped it right back up to double digits, and then it was over. That was a really impressive coaching performance by Rick, who I know got zinged a little bit for early in the series, a few things that didn't go right. But in the end, he had the right idea. Wear that team down, use the Pacers' superior depth, and trust the depth. That's one of the things that he's done that some other coaches haven't done, is really trust the depth. I've been very impressed with his willingness to do that, to believe in his bench, to believe in guys like TJ McConnell, obviously. I think that, he in particular would be someone that he's really trusted. And then Ben Shepherd, what an amazing revelation he's been with his strength and his energy, and he doesn't make mistakes. The only mistake you ever get out of Ben Shepherd is he'll miss a shot. I mean, that's the mistake that he makes. And And after he missed some early in the series and early in the playoffs, he's been really reliable from distance. When he takes it, he feels comfort. I think he feels more confidence now than maybe he did when the playoffs began. And now he's making his share of those shots. I think that the use of the bench has been really impressive. And it's not just let's burn some second quarter minutes and hope they don't take away whatever advantage or slight disadvantage we have. That they change the game when they come in. And then he sticks with them more than some other coaches do, both in that quarter and then later in the game.
Yeah, the depth. They set an NBA playoff shooting record, so that cannot be denied. That can't be ignored. This is a team that has depth and has a lot of quality pieces to it. And whether it's TJ O'Connell or whomever that is coming in and just gutting it out, but Rick Carlisle with more wins than Red Auerbach now. That's a weird thing to say. I heard somebody say that the other day, and I kind of chuckled. I go, yeah, but I bet they don't want to compare banners, do they?
Yeah. I wouldn't say that too loud, especially not this week. But he's done a really nice job with this group. He has. You lose a guy like Ben Mathurin. I mean, there was a lot of complaints about the players the Knicks lost through the series and who they were missing, but it's not like the Pacers weren't missing a starter, a key member of their rotation, someone that they had really relied upon for a lot of the regular season. And they had to find a way around that. And they did and have. And, it's funny because I was watching Game 7 of the Denver Timberwolves series and watching that and like, wow, these guys have a lot more trouble scoring than the Pacers do. You can see the difference in that amazing Pacers offense, like even against really terrific NBA teams like the Timberwolves and the Nuggets. The Pacers do not have to work as hard to get a bucket most of the time as teams like Denver and Minnesota do. They don't have the same offensive flow and capabilities that the Pacers do because of the wide variety of weapons that are assembled there. And I mean, I looked at the clock in the early second quarter. It's like 8 minutes left in the second quarter, and the Pacers had already breached 50 points in Game 7 against the Knicks. And I'm like, are they going to score like 170? I mean, what are we doing here? It cooled off a little bit after that, and then later on they slowed the tempo because they were protecting such a big lead. But 50 points in 16 minutes they did. That's just staggering.
Yeah, it's fun definitely something fun to watch, and will be something to continue as now the Pacers with a chance, this young team, which we all knew that they were, we expected some things out of them. The fans expected something out of them. I don't think anyone expected an appearance in the conference finals this year. But to be there already, great. And do they have a chance? Sure, they have a chance. This is professional sports. Everyone has a chance, but Boston, of course, the undenied favorite going into this, but injuries or sometimes teams get on a roll, even in professional, but that's what a series is for, to kind of eliminate some or both of those things, to not make it a fluke one game type of thing, or even a 2 out of 3. This is a 7-game series, man. And it takes, you got to do it game in, game out, at home, on the road. And so it's going to be a stern test for these Pacers.
Yeah, it's tough. For one, the Celtics are better rested. They closed their series out in 5 games against the Cavs in round 2, so they're much better rested, and there's only 2 days between Game 7 and Game 1 for the Pacers. So tonight's going to be hard, but I give them a chance. I do think they have a chance because they have something. They have something that's better than most everybody else, if not everybody else, and that is their offense. And then you add in the depth of the bench, and maybe they have another something that's better. The best player on the floor is going to be a Celtic in Jason Tatum, but I think they have a chance if they're able to maybe pull game 2. I think they have a chance. I'm excited to watch it. And one of the things that's interesting to me, Jim, is Kevin Pritchard is not one of the newfangled GMs, the guys who do it all by math and numbers and all that stuff. And so he doesn't get much heat in terms of media. There's not a lot of people talking about him, but look at what he's done. I mean, look at how he's built that roster, the draft picks, the trades. I mean, he traded away a terrific player in Domantas Sabonis, and I was not excited about that because I loved Sabonis. I thought he was a terrific player, and he's become an all-star in Sacramento. But look what he got back in Tyrese Halliburton and what Halliburton has become as a player. And then you look at the Siakam trade as well, another significant addition to this team. The way they've managed Miles Turner's contract extensions. Sam Presti gets so much pub, so much. And has he been to here in a while? It's been a while, right? It's been more than a decade, I think, since Sam Presti and Oklahoma City have gotten to this stage of the playoffs. But I think more people need to talk about the job Kevin Pritchard's done. He's just a basketball guy, right? He played for Kansas and worked his way up through the system, and he's not, he didn't learn his basketball with a slide rule and a calculator, but seems to be doing a pretty good job.
Yeah, was Pascal Siakam the piece that they needed? Not that he is such an outstanding difference, but the difference maker for this team and how he has fit, because he has seamlessly moved right in with his team into the flow and has actually been there on nights when Tyrese Halliburton has not been.
Yeah, I think that they had to have that trade to be here. To get better, they were already better. But Siakam made it serious. When they went for that trade, it was like, hey, they might be able to do something this year. I think that was a significant statement by the Pacers and a significant tactical move by Kevin Pritchard that they could do something this year. And now they have. Now, the trick is to make it so that this isn't all they've done. In front of them, they have an opportunity to return to the finals for the first time in 24 years. And it's there. It's not going to be easy. They're playing the team that was the best in the league all year long. That will be getting the significant home court advantage again, not just because the series starts in Boston, they earned that, but also because of how the schedule was set up, starting 2 days after Game 7 of the semifinal. So there's a significant home court advantage for the Celtics at the start of this tournament, of this series, and I think that's going to be challenging to overcome. But again, they earned that because A, they closed their series out in 5, and B, they had the #1 record in the East, if not the entire league. So they did earn that advantage, and that's what the Pacers will have to overcome.
We've got more coming up. The great Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News with us here at Indiana Sports B Radio, brought to you by Cheryl Sizemore and Remax Realty. For those of you in the market for a home in the Indianapolis area, reach out to Cheryl. Cheryl at IndyHomePros.com. Her 2 decades of experience could be the difference between getting the home you want or not. We're back with more Mike DeCourcy right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
If you're looking for I got me a cool Pacers shirt.
I like
well, this was at the track. They sell these at the track.
Look at that.
That is pretty
I like
cool.
that.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those unique things that which I don't buy. I don't buy hardly anything like this, but I saw it on a TV broadcast they were doing the other day. I'm like, you know what? That's just kind of cool. Wouldn't mind having one of those. Pacers support, or the Speedway supporting the Pacers, because this is authentic apparel of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So kind of cool. But yeah, the track is just amazing. And I got And I'm copying off of Tony Kornheiser now, Mike. Got me a real Indianapolis Motor Speedway checkered flag, baby.
You know, it's funny being back here in Pittsburgh. You don't get the day-to-day on it.
You're missing all the sports action now. You're just back in a basket or a football and baseball town, man.
Well, it's funny because you don't get the day-to-day on the race like you do when you live in Indy. And then
Talking about college basketball.
I moved away from the Pacers in their playoff run and the Caitlyn Clark introduction. So I moved away from that, but I will get to see the race for the first time, one of the first times. I'll get to see the race on my big screen TV. I think the one year we were able to do it was the COVID year we did, obviously, and then the year of the 100th anniversary they put it on for us. But all the other times they put that doggone blackout in, and I hate it. And I think it's I think it's wrong for everything the city does and the region does for the Speedway. I've always thought it's wrong. But now I don't have to worry about it anymore.
Well, what's funny is this year, I'm wondering if they lift the blackout because it was already announced like a week ago. They were only 10,000 tickets away from being sold out in the general admission. So it's like, dude, come on, Roger. What are you short on cash?
Exactly. Yeah, I'm not.
Maybe a little,
I'm not
maybe a little lighter in the wallet after getting or penalized in that race the week before before Indy.
Yeah.
All right, here we go, guys.
Okay.
With no payments for 90 days. That's right. 2023 and 2024 Honda Pilots, HRVs, CRVs, Honda Ridgelines, payment free for 90 days. Or get 0.9% APR financing for 36 months on a 2023 Honda Ridgeline. Go to IndyMoreHonda.com and get more to your door.
This segment is brought to you by Freethink Apparel. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this beautiful Tuesday. Hope you're getting to enjoy it before it gets too warm. Brought to you by our friends over at Freethink Apparel and Promotions. Whether you need 24 t-shirts for your upcoming family reunion or 200 for the season recreational baseball or softball leagues, Freethink Apparel meets your printing needs. They're a team of industry experts worked with you to design a professional-looking sales-generating web store of your very own for your custom-designed apparel or promotional merchandise. Doesn't matter if you're a large business, corporation, high school sports team, or national account. Freethink Apparel delivers no matter where you are. Visit freethinkapparel.com today and get printing. Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News with us now. And Mike, something else that came up last week on the college basketball side. Creighton was scheduled to play in the Battle of Atlantis, and they not only dropped out, but had to pay to drop out, similar to a coach having to pay a buyout to move to another team. But they did this in order to move to the Players Era tournament, which is a new tournament, but it's also one that will pay the players in essence. They're going to reap benefits from this. And this is going to be something that I think becomes bigger and bigger. I will say this, first of all, for as much as it costs to go to freaking Atlantis, they damn well ought to be paying somebody because, boy, that's a tidy sum for fans to go down there.
Yeah, you know, I'm very curious about this whole thing because they have 8 teams, and I think they're going to pay $8 million or something like that to the players. You got to rent a building and arrange for hotels and all the rest of that stuff. And I just don't see the money in it, Jim. They don't have at this stage, they don't have a network television deal for the distribution of that tournament. So I I'm not against anybody making money or whatever, but it just like you saw the NBA in the last month has closed down G League Ignite, and they did that for one reason, Jim, and that is G League Ignite costs money, and it wasn't making them any. It was just a money hole, and they did it for a specific reason, and they now believe, or at least they contend, that they were able to shut the program down because college players are getting paid now, so they don't feel compelled to provide the alternative to stay stateside. They feel like now college players are getting that fair deal to get paid, and so they shut down the Ignite. So okay, so where's the money in paying way more for team acquisition to a multi-team event? Where it's not going to be in ticket sales. I mean, I just don't, because for one, it's hard to sell. Like if you try to put it in a 15,000 seat building, it's not easy to sell out a 15,000 seat building for a multi-team event unless you have Kansas, Kentucky, Duke, Carolina. Unless you have some segment of that group, it's hard to sell it out. And even then, like when the CBS Sports Classic went to New Orleans, and I don't remember the year, but it was sometime in the teens. They went to New Orleans, and they had the CBS Sports Classic has UCLA, Kentucky, Ohio State, and Carolina, and there were more than 10,000 empty seats in the building, and so even having those brands doesn't guarantee you sell tickets. So I don't know where the income is for this. And I wonder about whether or not this will continue. But I get Creighton saying, hey, and maybe behind their scenes, they're saying, hey, I don't think this is going to last very long, so let's get in while we can. And now it won't be anytime soon. I think that they get invited back to Atlantis. And the one thing you can say for them, that if they were trading in Atlantis, at least they didn't trade it in for some place at the edge of the world. I mean, they're going to Vegas, so the fans of the Blue Jays will still get a good trip out of it.
Yeah, I agree, and but I think this is something we're probably going to see more of. I'm not sure. Are they paying $8 million out? I
thought it was $1 million a team. That was my understanding.
What I've got written down, and I can be very wrong, is that is $125,000 per team for the payments for the players, and then if you divide that out, do you divide that by 13, which is the scholarships, or do you go to every player that's on there, including walk-ons? But if it's just the 13 scholarship players, it's just under $10,000 a player. Not bad for a weekend gig, but if that's the case,
each participating team. Nope. Each participating team, NIL Collective, is set to receive a $1 million payout of money to be distributed to current players. Nobody is taking off Atlantis to go get 100,000. I mean, they're not going to do that. $1 million is a different deal. So
do they get to disperse that at their discretion?
Yeah. I mean, it goes to the collective, so they can do whatever they want with it. Yeah, so it beefs up their collective, which is the attractiveness of it, because they're like Creighton. I don't know what kind of access to money they have, but they don't have a football team and all of that. So they have there's an advantage and a disadvantage there. They aren't a state institution, but they do have a terrific fan base that sells out their building in Omaha. I've been in the building. It's a legit NBA size arena. And they sell it out a lot of time, if not all the time. When they're really good, they certainly sell it out all the time. And that's been, most of the past 10 years. So I get why they're doing it for $1 million. I just don't get why the people paying the $1 million are paying the $1 million.
Yeah, it's a good question, because if that just went to the players, which I know that won't be, because schools are going to take their cut, and we don't know what their cut is going to be.
Schools can't take their cut of that money. It's not legal.
Of the $1 million?
No, they can't. It's because it goes to the collective.
Then that's
So they make it
$77,000 per player.
I mean, that's a lot of money, and it won't
just to play just for that weekend.
Yeah,
they're gonna make more money in that weekend than the average American worker makes in a year.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, if it's distributed the way you say, but on average, yeah. But the key is
how does that not
helps
piss off the American people? I mean, they're going to start to get upset with that. I'm going to imagine.
Well, Jim, I mean, do you realize how much money Tyrese Halliburton makes?
Well, I understand.
I mean, Tyrese Halliburton made more money since I just began this sentence than I will all year. I mean, it's the way it is now in entertainment.
I get it. I'm not.
You realize how much money Taylor Swift makes?
I'm not pissed. I'm jealous.
I mean, I don't know. Look, if you want to be entertained, like if you want to be entertained by people who don't make any money doing it, then I suggest going to a middle school basketball game because like if you're proficient at that level, where you've got television networks paying significant money for the rights to broadcast your games. And that's true, obviously most true of football, but it's also true of men's and women's basketball. And it's even true down the line. I mean, they're not paying huge money to televise college baseball and softball, but they're putting it on. And so they're paying some. So all those athletes are to some degree valuable. And so I don't know how you get mad about that. If you, like I said, if you do the math on what Taylor Swift makes in a course of a year, or especially a year like last year, I mean, it's staggering. It's more than the GPA or GP gross domestic product GDP of some countries. I'm sure. And so that's just the way it is now.
It's crazy, and it's gotten crazy a long time ago when the contracts for the pro athletes were astronomical, and people are like, "Gee, now that has sunk down to college athletes," and that is just mind-boggling. And I think a big part of it is because it's gone from 0 to 100 in no time.
Yeah. I agree with that, Jim. It is startling, but think about the fact that 20 years ago, you made a lot of money if you were making in the millions. If you were making 7 figures as a college basketball coach or a college football coach, you were well paid. If you were great, if you were like a legend, you might be making $3 million. And then in 2009, Texas decided that Mac Brown needed to make $5 million. And I'm telling you, when that happened, on the day that happened, I remember seeing it come over the wire or whatever. And that day, I knew everything had changed, Jim. I've written about this. I knew the day they decided that Mac Brown had to make $5 million, that nothing was ever going to be the same in college sports, because he was making a heck of a living at $3 million. And you could make the case when they were making 3, and the assistant coaches were making somewhere between low 6 figures and $500,000. You could make the case that the athletes were getting a fair deal relatively, but you can't make that case when you decide that $11 million a year for Kirby Smart isn't enough and he's got to make 13. You can't in that case say, "Oh, well, I'm sorry, but a scholarship is enough." Now you're paying Kirby Smart $13 million. I mean, that's absurd money. So of course you have to compensate the players who are generating the product on the field. I mean, Kirby Smart might be dreaming it up, but it's not like we're going to say, "Hey, let's watch Kirby coach," and then we'll watch it all play out on a Madden game or one of those electric football things that there were when I was a kid. No, we want to see players do it. And so if the players are doing it, then it's reasonable that they should be compensated.
Larry Bird's first contract with the Boston Celtics paid him $640,000 per year over 5 years.
640 over 5 years.
Well, he per year over 5
Per year.
years. Per
Yeah.
year. It was a $3.25 million contract
There you go.
for 5 years,
Yes.
which today would be laughed at. The guys that are sitting at the number 17 spot might be making that. I don't know.
I would make the argument, and this is a whole nother tangent, but I would make the argument that that a player like Larry Bird, or a player who's entering the league now as a first-year player should be able to get more than their slot. I made this argument a few weeks ago when people were complaining about Caitlyn Clark's salary being only $78,000 or $80,000, something like that. And I said, well, Caitlyn Clark should have the right to come in and earn whatever the maximum amount is in the WNBA, because she
why
shouldn't be.
Is that not the case? I don't understand why they're limited. It's like, how can
it's because the Players Association signed an agreement that limited and rookie players, entering players, to a specific contract. It goes back to Glenn Robinson. It has its roots in Indiana, so to speak. Glenn Robinson left Purdue in 1994 and asked for $100 million from the Milwaukee Bucks, and the league freaked out. He ended up getting 100 anyway. I think he ended up getting like 68 or something like that. But the league freaked out that somebody could ask for that, and so that's when they put in the rookie salary cap the next year. And what ended up happening is, instead of a succession of Shaquille O'Neal and Chris Webber and Penny Hardaway and Grant Hill and Jason Kidd and Big Dog and guys like that entering your league and becoming significant stars right away, more players entered early before they were ready to come in and be stars. And you wound up with paying less money, but for a lesser player. And now it takes guys 4 to 5 years to become significant stars in the league. Whereas before, they were getting those guys right from the jump. Shaquille O'Neal came in, changed the Orlando Magic in 1 year, completely changed who they are. You don't get that anymore. You don't get that player. Victor Wembanyama, everybody says he's going to be the next guy. I think the Spurs won like 30 games. You don't get that level of stardom anymore immediately. You're paying less, but for a lesser product. I don't see how the NBA wins there.
You can look at the Indiana Fever and Caitlyn Clark. She is going through the period that Diana Taurasi absolutely, and not without malice, mentioned when she was asked about her, that, hey, reality's coming for Caitlyn Clark. And but not to say she's not going to end up being great in that league. There's a learning curve, man. She's not playing against people that mostly are not as good as her as she was doing in college. Now she's playing against every single person that is maybe not as good as her, but they're more experienced, so that makes them as good or better right now. She's going through that learning curve.
Yeah, she also was played out of position somewhat the first couple of games, and she's not on a very gifted team. But look at it. Look at her numbers after 4 games. She's averaging 17 points a game. She's averaging 5.5 assists a game. The numbers are not, they're not what people, because she's not going in and obliterating the league and all of that. But she's averaging some impressive numbers, and that's just at the start. Now she's got the ball in her hands more often. I think you'll see more and better results. I can't speak for the team. The team really struggles, but they also did start out with a healthy dose of the top teams in the league. So I did not think that Diana Taurasi spoke elegantly on that. I thought it was more of the same. Dump on the player whose popularity is potentially going to elevate the league. It already has. I mean, no one would be paying attention at this point if, or I shouldn't say no one, but no one outside the hardcore WNBA fans would be paying attention at 4 games into a WNBA season. And now there's legitimate conversation and eyeballs on the games because of her entry into the league, because of Angel Reese's entry into the league. They have elevated the audience for the game. And I thought Diana Taurasi just added more onto that. I more onto the idea that like, no, she's not worth paying attention to. She'll find out. I think Caitlyn Clark is a special athlete, a special personality. And I think that more in the league should be embracing what the eyeballs she brings. Hey, people are going to watch her. That means they're going to see me. They're going to see how good I am. If they haven't already seen it by now, they're going to find out now. And that's true of Diana Taurasi. I know she's been in the league forever. She's still great. Asia Wilson, etc. People that we can name, but a lot of people haven't seen play. We'll see her play. We'll see them play now because Caitlyn Clark brought a greater audience to the WNBA.
Mike, what's up next for you, sir?
Wow, I have an article up now about the United States men's national soccer team and how Gio Reyna, that big soap opera that we had a year ago, has kind of a happy ending because after everything that happened from the 22 World Cup through the various soap opera allegations back and forth, etc. Now Gio needs the national team, and the national team kind of needs him too. And it's at this point, Gio played a whole year where he barely got on the field with two different European teams. And he'll come back to playing Copa America this summer, and he'll probably be one of the most important players on the field for the U.S. So if he has a great summer, maybe he gets a club situation that works out better for him. So kind of an interesting, sort of full circle moment for the U.S. men's national team and Gio Reyna. And I wrote that column yesterday, and it appeared late yesterday. So still fresh on the internet now.
We don't have the time to talk about it, but I also the Premier League won for the fourth straight year by was it Man U?
Manchester City.
Manchester
City.
First time that's ever happened.
Team. Yeah, the wealthiest team in world soccer. Money does it for you, Jim. Money can change things. And you want to talk about a league or a enterprise? I guess all of European soccer needs a salary cap, man. They need one. There are some people whispering about it in Europe, and it probably never happened, but they need it because right now the actual competition in Europe, it's the same teams almost every time. We got a new winner in Germany for the first time in a dozen years. Spain, same old winner. France, same old winner. And obviously England, the first time ever, 4 in a row.
Appreciate you, sir. As always, look forward to it next week.
Thanks, Jim.
Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News and Big Ten Network. Make sure you give him a follow and keep up with his content at the Sporting News. We've got lots more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Joining us in the next hour, both Greg Rakestraw and Craddock Hoosier. We've got more coming up right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the I didn't ask him that last question. I was trying to let him know that we don't have time to talk. I had to go.
Morning, excuse me. Morning, Chronic.
Good morning, guys. How's it going?
Good.
How are you, sir?
I am doing well. How about you?
You know what? Doesn't matter if no one wants to listen to it, right?
Ain't that the truth?
And by whoever's listening, by the way, when I was talking earlier about the coaching requirements for college football to get into the College Football Hall of Fame, it's 60% or better. That's the unfortunate thing for Howard Schnellenberger. He's 158 and 151, I think. But yeah, that's going to suck for him. They'll get him in some way, I think. Contributor, I don't know. But he is passed, so there you go. How have you been, man?
Doing well, man. Doing well. Ready to dive headlong into summer here.
Well,
Certainly
as I just
feel
heard,
like
it's right
it
around the
today.
corner.
This evening, I will come home from work with a senior and a sophomore in my household. And then only get the senior for a couple of days before I send her off to Europe. So it's here. And then next week, I got to put my youngest on a driver's permit.
Holy cannoli.
God help us all.
Oh man, recruiting is still going. A big weekend for the all of the Indiana targets.
Yeah, it's kind of wild that as much recruiting news and ballyhoo as there's been, now we get to really focus on next year, which is normally a foregone conclusion by this time of the season. But it's like now we get to turn our attention to those youngins. But that's probably the way of the future now, and probably not for the worse for the teams. Like you were just talking about with Mike with the Caitlyn Clark thing. Big difference recruiting kids versus vets.
Yep.
As far as impact.
I love the intrigue too that you get with just kind of not knowing how things are going to be. I mean, you kind of have an idea, but you really don't know how anyone's going to mesh until they play.
Yeah, and it's more like it does remind me of the transfer window in soccer, where it's very much out in the open now. It's you're not dealing, at least on the player side. Schools are still kind of handcuffed on what they can comment about and acknowledge and things of that.
All right, here we go, guys. Here we go.
This segment is brought to you by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Tuesday, brought to you by our friends over at Boost Fundraising. If you know someone needing a fundraiser, Boost Fundraising raises more money faster and offers the most unique and user-friendly online fundraiser in the nation. Your team receives personalized fundraising pages for each team member, free team-branded promotional gifts shipped right to each donor. Boost Fundraising does it all: sports teams, marching bands, charity causes, community groups. Go to boostfundraising.com. Be sure to enter the promo COYLE, C-O-Y-L-E, to receive a discounted fundraiser. Welcome in, Chronic Hoosier. How are you, sir?
Man, I need some discounts on raising funds. I'll have to get some numbers.
Hey, there you
I'm
go.
always looking for more funds.
There you go. You and me both, brother. You and me both. There's how you can do it. A big weekend for, and it's almost funny to say this, but Indiana recruiting targets. No, it's not playing on other teams in college, and the transfer portal. Indiana's going to have to is not a word I like to use, but they will need to have a solid recruiting class next year. And by solid, I don't mean 6 deep, because that is, you cannot, I don't think you can bring in 6 freshmen and be successful. And I don't mean that as a slight to Purdue, because I know that Painter just did that, but he had kind of had that planned already, and he is still going along with his plan, his style of recruiting. But he has also mentioned that he may have to make an adjustment, and I think that is without question he's going to have to, because you cannot have 6 freshmen coming in. You're going to have a mix of experience, and it doesn't matter if it's experience that's already on your team, or if you have to go out and get that experience via the transfer portal. I think you need a mix. I think that a maximum of 4 players, Chronic, is the most I would want to see being brought in a recruiting class.
Now, I think probably 3, maybe 4 is going to be your sweet spot. And we were talking a little bit about it over break. It's a situation now where there's a whole lot less speculation required when you're recruiting the portal versus straight out of high school. And, I don't know that it's an all or nothing type thing. I think this is going to be one of the new intricacies of roster construction, is how do you balance longer term investments in kids, bringing them in as freshmen versus, bringing in more proven, experienced veteran guys through the portal. You have a whole lot more comps when assessing and analyzing guys out of the portal than what you do in high school. You don't have to project as much, how that's going to translate in a league that's bigger, stronger, faster, more skilled, more versatile than what you do when you're looking at guys who have already played perhaps in Power Five or at least Division One or even Division Two for that matter. But you just have a better idea of what you're getting. Now that said, you can have the best off season in the nation or in the conference, even as many are saying IU has, and you get to basically restart the process anew next year because of the massive amount of attrition that can find itself in your cycle, if you will. So, next year you're going to have one true senior, assuming Malik Renew comes back. There's a possibility he doesn't. You have no seniors, at least not currently on the roster. We have talked before, and I will continue to talk about till I die. I think continuity goes a long way in how you build and manage the roster. That's not to say that you shouldn't be constantly trying to upgrade your talent wherever possible, addressing your most pressing needs. But especially on teams that are going to hang a hat on defense, that continuity is priceless because it allows you to pick up where you left off from the last season and grow and develop even further rather than having to start from square one again. And I think that's going to be one of the fascinating things with this new day and age of roster building is how teams manage that. Because as we've talked about before, it's not always getting the best players, i.e. Kentucky and Duke. In order to get the results you're seeking, you've got to figure out what that true mix is. And like you said, just as we started this, you've got to make sure the pieces fit. It's a very complex puzzle, and even the best pieces on the board don't necessarily mean they're best for your particular puzzle. So it's going to be a wild time for sure. But the good news is as much fun as folks had following along this off season, it very much looks like Indiana fans are going to get to do it all over again, just by the sheer volume of vacancies that are going to rise in the roster. So my guess is probably a mix. And I don't think it's an all or nothing as far as it's not like you're just getting freshmen and seniors. Look at Rice's addition. I think when you can find guys who fit the needs, who fit the culture, who fit your particular puzzle, but there's a little premium the more runway they give you once they get on the roster, because that allows you to maybe build some continuity and going down the road. So we've got a pretty thin freshman class right now. Ja'Kai Newton, even though he's been on campus for a year, this is going to be his first season playing. So he joins Tucker in that true freshman role. So you're going to be a little thin in the underclassmen, in addition to having, a bunch of room for new freshmen if you choose to go that way, with the pretty dominant junior class coming in next year. So it's going to be wild to see how it works, but I wouldn't be surprised if, you want to get your top guys. And if that falls through, then you've still got options in the portal, as Mike Woodson showed this year. You may be down, but you're never out in this day and age. So, especially when you carry around the kind of bag that he does. And credit to his staff. It's been mentioned this isn't just a bidding thing. A lot of folks think this is just straight up raw naked capitalism. At the end of the day, this staff still has to convince the players, the families, and all their advisors and all their people why Indiana is the best fit for them. Because it's not just about a bank account. If that were the case, you can pretty much project every year where all the top talent's going to go. This is a personal decision, every bit as much, probably more so than it's a business decision for these guys. And no small feat in convincing this much talent to come play together, knowing that there's no guarantees as far as minutes. So it's going to be very intriguing to see how they balance that, and importantly how they manage that relationship throughout the course of the season. Because if you like the guys you got and you want to keep them, now you got to work on retaining them every year, and part of that's going to be player satisfaction over the course of the season. So it's an ongoing, basically never-ending recruitment, even once you got them here, as far as keeping the roster you want for the next season. So wild times ahead for sure. We can talk about season results and we can split hairs on all that, but it's really tough to argue with the staff's efforts and fruits of their labors this season. And hopefully they can carry that momentum going forward, because that was the big risk coming out of a really disappointing season, was losing the juice on the trail. And whatever juice was lost, Woody and staff have picked that up in spades, it would appear, heading into his fourth season at the helm.
Yeah, the class that Indiana is shooting at next year, loaded, of course. But the difference here is that the majority of these guys are Indiana players. They're from the state of Indiana. Whether I'm talking about Braylon Mullins, who his recruiting is rising like a bullet, is going straight up. It's going to be interesting to see how much his ranking increases, because it is going to go up. Trent Sisley has had a tremendous season or summer, and has seemed to just continue to get better with each game. And then, of course, Malachi Moreno. They're all on the Indiana Elite team, that they're undefeated in 3 SSB play, the Adidas circuit, at 13-0 on that circuit. Then you've got Jalen Harrelson, of course, the 6'7" big man that plays out in the front court, that had a 21, 22, and 37-point performance this weekend. So these 4 guys alone, if the likelihood of landing all 4 of those, not likely, but that's a Grand Slam, probably number 1 recruiting class, or potentially top 5, definite, without question, if that could be pulled off.
No doubt. And, it's for a state that consistently produces a ton of top talent, especially proportionate to its population. This one is notably loaded. And, I think Indiana fans would be happy if you got any one of those. Obviously, the more you can stack, the better. But as we've said before, when it comes to these Indiana boys, it's a double-edged sword, because if you lose them, chances are you're going to lose them in your backyard. They tend to stay close to home, and you hate to see your top targets end up playing for your opposition. So it's going to be a wild ride for sure. I don't know. A lot of folks love to presuppose that AAU or high school affiliation, inherently means there's going to be a package deal. That is such the rarity as opposed to the norm. I don't put hardly any water in that, but you never know. Stranger things have happened. Look at the Montverde connection, and the way Indiana was able to harvest quite a bit of talent through that. And let's see if maybe Indiana Elite can't get back to the days of the Indiana Red team and become a pretty solid, reliable pipeline, not just for talent, but some of the best players in the nation. Because we all know it's just what we do here. We grow corn and great basketball players, man.
I'm going to have to dig it up, obviously, but I'm wondering, when is the last time an Indiana-based team won, say, either the EYBL championship, if that has happened, or the 3SSB title?
I'm trying to remember. Did Odin and Conley win with they ran with Spieth? No, who was there?
I'll have to pull it up to see, because there's been so many. Hell, you could just look at Indiana Elite, and there's been so many. But then you add all these others, it's crazy. The Teague brothers that come out of Indiana, the Duaneys, it just goes so deep. You just mentioned Odin and Conley. It's crazy. But man, this Indiana Elite team, they're for real. They're undefeated on the Adidas circuit, and they won their first game in Texas this weekend on Friday by like 50, and that is no joke. They held the team to, I think, like 35 points. They scored 80, and let's see, Braylon Mullins, 6 of 6 behind the arc, 8 of 10 from the field overall for 80%. And you just, like I said, Trent Sisley is doing what he does. And it's just, these are solid in-state players that, if you're a fan, you certainly want to see them play in state, but you want to see them play on your team, because that gets you back to a little piece of how things used to be. It doesn't matter about the other parts that go with it. It just kind of brings in a little bit. I know for the fans of Indiana, long for that, how it used to be, and that's not going to happen. But this can bring you a little closer by having these guys that are from Heritage Hills or wherever they're playing inside of the borders of Indiana.
Yeah, so I got tracked. That was Speed Cindy Gym Rats, by the way. Say that again. I got caught in a Google rabbit hole looking at old AAU teams in the past, trying to answer your query.
No, I was just saying that it's nothing. It's never going to be like it used to be as far as the changes that have come about. But by being able to land guys like this that are all from in-state, except for Malachi Moreno, who is from Lexington, which would actually be something else that doesn't happen. But to be able to pull guys like that in, whether it's Trent Sisley and Jalen Harrelson or Braylon Mullins, the great players from inside the state, that gets you a little closer to things. Not only is it a mixture of portal guys and recruits, but it's also a mixture of old school and new school, which as far as how it used to be.
Yeah, no, and it's efficient in a lot of different ways. You can keep close tabs on them. You can it's easier to maintain a relationship just because of the proximity. I mean, ask anybody who's ever been in a distance relationship. It's tough. It takes a lot more work than being closer proximity. I think there's more altruistic things. I think all of us who grew up in this state at one point or another have been influenced by watching other guys in Indiana play and have success and move on. And, whether you can go back every generation, almost every class for that matter. Everybody has stories about seeing that guy, back in middle school. I saw Damon Bailey dunk in middle school at Seymour Middle School. It was one of the wildest things I've ever seen. And by that point, he'd already been in Sports Illustrated, and you knew. But when you have a chance to see it, and now with social media and just the prevalence of all the content out there, it's so much easier to follow these guys as they work their way up, as they have success, and really keep tabs on them. But you cannot underestimate the impact that has on future generations. I firmly believe you've got to see it to be it. You have to be able to visualize your success, and it makes it so much easier when guys playing in the gyms that you play in, whether for your team or against them in your sectional and your regional, what have you, even on opposite ends of the state, it's a close enough community that it matters to have guys that kids look up to, that kids want to emulate. Think no further than that photo of Jared Jeffries and a young Jordan Holes, and then fast forward and there is a young Anthony Leal with an older Jordan Holes. And every time I see photos of Anthony taking pictures with the kids after games or at the events that they all participate in, you've got to wonder who's the next kid to keep that circle going, because it's out there. It's very much, I promise you, as sure as the sun's going to rise, you're going to see a future Indiana basketball player down the road post a childhood picture with Anthony Leal in college. It's just the way things work, and it's the natural order. So that matters. It does. I don't know that the proximity matters as much as what it used to. With streaming and all the different ways that you can follow teams across the country. I think kids are branching further and further away from home than what they historically have. But that trend still tracks pretty strong statistically. The kids are going to stay within a reasonably close distance to home. They want their friends and their family members to be able to follow them. It's not that that's a hard and fast rule, but that just tends to guide a lot of them. So, you've got that working in your favor. At the end of the day, though, you've still got to cash it. You've still got to get them on campus and get them signed up. And, before that can happen, you've got to show why it's the right fit for them. And as much as the situations look idyllic on paper, so much happens behind the scenes that really determine whether or not the fit's going to work for the kids that you never really know. And I always caution people, when things don't go well on recruiting, you have no idea what led to that decision. A lot of times it's just as simple as it just wasn't the right path for whatever reason. And oftentimes that involves playing time. Oftentimes it just involves personalities. And you really can't fault either side for not meshing. Sometimes it just doesn't fit. But this is what the period's all about. This is what the recruiting cycle is supposed to do, is give them the chance on both sides to figure out where those fits are. And the teams have their chance to plead their case and prove why. So the most important thing, though, I think you see across the board, success tends to attract success. Young players want to play on teams where they feel like they're going to have the best opportunity to achieve their goals. And typically, they all want to advance to the NBA, but most kids deep in their heart, they want to win. And I have zero problem with kids who are unabashed about both. But ideally, you get the kids who want to be the best they can, while also contributing, sometimes even to their detriment, maybe taking a lesser role in order for a greater good. And, I think when you get guys on that same page together is when magic can truly happen. So you never underestimate, right now it's an observation period. How much of that, though, really gets solidified when they get a chance to get on campus, when they get to interact with the current team, with future team members, and just see. Because it's amazing how quickly that can work itself out once you roll the ball out and let them get some run together.
Absolutely. Chronic Hoosier, thank you so much, brother.
Hey, appreciate you guys having me. Enjoy your summer. Catch you next week.
Absolutely. Chronic Hoosier brought to you by the Ugly Grouper down on that beautiful Anna Maria in Florida. Whether you're in the area already or going to be stopping by, the Ugly Grouper is the place to be, with your favorite cocktails and draft beers. Always music every day, family friendly, and you can have your big events there as well. Make sure you stop by and visit the Ugly Grouper. Just go to theuglygrouper.com. Back with Greg Rakestraw after this from the Indiana Sports Network. Back right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Formerly, boy, I didn't think he was ever going to stop.
Yeah, it happens sometimes.
Now I know why they call him chronic. He's chronically talking.
I could have got up, went downstairs, and got another cup of coffee, man. How are you, sir?
I'm good. I'm still having that same issue with my phone. So thankfully, my next thing was like 3 minutes from my house. So that's why I logged on early to see. And so I raced back here. And so you get me on my laptop at home instead.
So could you hear me yesterday, Greg, whenever I was talking?
It's weird. Like the 5G, I'm a Verizon customer, and the 5G on my phone went out as I was trying to log in.
Okay.
And the same
it showed
thing
you were
happened.
on. I just couldn't hear you at all.
The same thing happened just now. And I'm like, okay, so there may be a trip to the Verizon store at some point in the next couple of days just to go, hey, this is weird. I've never seen this, because obviously normally I'm doing this, from my car, dropping my kid off at therapy or school. So.
Yeah, that's funny, Justin. Indiana has an opportunity to have Woody and Harrelson on the team next year.
That's pretty funny, yeah.
It kind of is. How was your weekend? I went to the track Saturday. I wanted to get back Sunday, but I had a rivals camp that I was hoping to just kind of make an appearance at and go on, but it ended up taking longer. And gee whiz, I don't know what was hotter, being on that turf field or being on the IMS track, but damn it, they were both hot. But man, I watched Indy. I had it taped when I got home, and it was they have made that so exciting. It's fun to watch those guys. I'm like, wow, this is way better than the NBA draft or all. I can't think of another sport that has turned an auxiliary portion of the event into an event itself, which I know you're going to say the NFL draft, but man, the NFL draft is not nearly as fun as what Indy has going on. Have you been out to the track, I assume?
I was there on Sunday. Had 5 hours of radio on Sunday.
Oh, man.
Then I'll do 3 hours this Sunday post-race. Then I do the PA for the morning at the track. So I'm on PA from 6 to 11.
All right, here we go, guys.
These CRVs, Honda Ridgelines, payment-free for 90 days. Or get 0.9% APR financing for 36 months on a 2023 Honda Ridgeline. Go to AndyMooreHonda.com and get more to your door.
This segment is brought to you by Hoosier Hanks East. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Tuesday. Thank you so much for being with us. Greg Rakestraw joins us now with the ISC Sports Network, of course, but he's ubiquitous. He's everywhere. Or better yet, you can when I was playing high school football at Floyd Central, Elmer Murray was our head coach, and originally he was from Alabama. He had played at Western Kentucky, but he was just really a great guy. But he was funny, and he had that Southern accent. And we were running a play, and somebody threw the ball left-handed, and I'll never forget. Damn, that boy's amphibious. I mean, I'm sure that he meant it on purpose and cracked, as a joke, but he came out with it so fast. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. How are you doing, sir?
I'm good. Now, do you know our respective high schools have the very rare postseason matchup this afternoon?
Really? In what sport? Softball?
So tennis is still a single class sport.
Wow.
Lanesville had been a New Albany sectional for the last 30-something years. No longer the case. Lanesville's girls team hosted and won their sectional last week. They will play Floyd Central at Jeffersonville in the regional today. Lanesville and Floyd played each other a couple of weeks ago, and Lanesville won 3-2. So perhaps should there be some level of friendly wager, not that you should gamble on high school sports, but in the interest of talk show banter, should we have something going back and forth here?
Absolutely. I'll be at the track, and so you make the call. What is it?
Well, if we're going to have a race day bet, I mean, I got to think of tenderloins at stake for lunch on Sunday. What do you think?
Buddy, they smelled so good when I was and ironically, I was talking about that area behind the pagoda.
Mm-hmm.
That might be the best place to go watch things there. It's kind of like being at the paddock at the Kentucky Derby.
Right.
But I find it a little better. Now, race day, it's everything's crazy. Don't get me wrong, but you can bring your own fold out chairs and boom, drop it right there and watch the gigantic screen. You're unless you're up in a seat anyway, you're not going to see much other than for about 1.1 seconds. If you watch from one end to the other, maybe. I love it back there. I spend a lot of time back there when I'm there. If I'm not actively doing something, it's a great area. And I would go to every event except for the race and sit back there and be happy as a lark.
So if you're going to do the lawn chair thing, I want to spread out thing, that's what the road race is for. That quals weekend, you can do that too. Practice, you can do that as well. On race day, no, it's going to be a little tough to do that unless you get there first thing in the morning and park your car inside of turn 3. That's kind of the one area where you can still do that, from an infield perspective. Thankfully, I kind of have my own reserved suite. But does it come with a great view of the track? No.
He's big timing us, people. He's big timing us.
I get to see a sliver of the track from the 3rd floor of the media center. The 4th floor has the overlook down the main straightaway. I camp out on the 3rd floor, so I'm basically watching on a monitor, kind of like everybody else. I'm just doing so where I can look out the window and see all the action on Victory Circle, kind of everything kind of behind the scenes. And I also get air conditioning. So maybe I'm big timing you a little bit.
Yeah, well, I just go up to the press area. It's
right. You actually have a better view
was,
from that floor than I do from my seat. I'm a floor below you.
I was looking at that from the opposite side when I was leaving on Saturday. I went up and just sat into a seat. I'm like, I'm going to watch the last couple of runs here because there's still a couple of guys that can try to, and they're going to try to make it right up until the bell rings. But I was sitting here looking at where the press area was, which it's not bad. I'm not complaining,
right.
But I wish they would have put it on the other side of the pagoda, and closer to the start finish line. But of course, I'm being a little needy.
So that media center is almost 25 years old at this point. There is talk of that potentially becoming some suites because apparently there's not enough of those at the track. It used to be that the press bunker would be kind of where the Formula One garages are now. In other words, they were right next to Gasoline Alley because that's where most of your work was going to be done, especially during the long month of May. You're going to be kind of walking the garages, going back, talking to teams, etc. And then if you look underneath what is the second deck, obviously on the outside of the track along the front straightaway, it looks like, kind of reminds me of what the press box setup would be at the old Cardinal Stadium, where you had the two different press boxes. They were both kind of attached to the roof, and that's where you would look out depending on whether it's the football alignment or the baseball alignment. So they're actually like, it's not suites, but kind of like press box style seating on the opposite side of the track that really doesn't get used anymore. And there is talk about potentially kind of going back there for race day because there's kind of on the second floor, there's kind of this photo kind of area that, again, doesn't have a direct view of the track. On the third floor, the old what was the old cafeteria, basically, and they just cater in food now, and so they don't cook out of there. That's kind of become like the fan studio, or like the folks where like kind of the television people hang out. Because TV usually has their own suites at ground level as well. So this is way too inside baseball for all of you IndyCar people, but a glimpse into how the sausage gets made for us during the month of May.
No, and that would be probably very interesting. But Indy is just a special event, but that is why it draws in over 2.5 million or 330,000 people.
Correct.
Well over 250,000. I mean, it's mind-boggling the amount of people that come to this event, that this event is able to hold. And the fact that it still holds the attention. It has weathered the COVID storm. It's weathered. This thing's been around for 8 years now.
Correct.
108th.
Right.
So it's weathered everything and gone from old little bitty cars that probably ran about 50 miles an hour. I don't know how fast they ran back in the day, but I sat there and watched those cars go, and I'm like, holy smokes. And to be in that cockpit mentally for the 2 hours or whatever the time length it takes to run this race, that is the hardest part. Is you have to stay unbelievably mentally sharp the whole time. There's no taking off other than maybe a split second down the stretch, unless you're in a passing situation or something. It's your mind on.
Correct. And so much of what these guys do, from a fitness training standpoint, is to allow them to stay mentally focused in that scenario. To put this in perspective, that race is probably going to be in the neighborhood of 3 hours, maybe a little bit longer, all depending on number of cautions, et cetera. The fastest 500, I think Tony Kanaan's win in 2013 eclipsed what was Arie Luyendyk's winning race speed. And obviously it's a quest for speed the entire month. We don't have to talk about the average speed of the race unless there's an exorbitant amount of cautions. But I think Tony's race speed was an average of 190 miles an hour, which basically meant that race got done in less than 3 hours. Normally it's right around 3. They run 500 miles here. The other oval events usually aren't anything more than 300 miles. Most races from a road course standpoint are about an hour 40, hour 45, hour 50. This is going to be, 3 hours. And so this is both a quest for speed and an endurance race. And so it is part of the unique nature. And you talk about the speed that these guys run. Again, I'll do the math for you. When they're turning a lap at 225 miles an hour, that's a 40-second lap. Race pace, when it's green flag, is probably just a little less than that. The qualifying speeds, Scott McLaughlin's on the pole. His first 2 qualifying laps were 234 miles per hour, to kind of give you an idea. That speed is about 240 going into a turn, going into the turn at 1 after the 5/8 of a mile straightaway, going into turn 3 after the 5/8 of a mile straightaway, heading to the north end of the track. They won't touch those speeds in the race, but there will be some laps of north of 220 miles an hour, if not 225 miles an hour. And when those guys first get going and you see that train of 15, 20, 25, 30 cars, it is absolutely remarkable. And frankly, it kind of makes it hard to watch the NASCAR guys 2 months later at the track, just because you're mentally kind of trained to see the speed of the Indy cars, and you just want to kind of you're saying, come on, start moving, because the NASCAR guys going about a $185, $190, $195. They're hauling at that track, but it's slow in comparison to watching the Indy cars go by.
Yeah, and then I could sum up the Indy 500 right now with 3 words: Will Power, Penske, and Kyle Larson. I mean, I don't know if there's 3 bigger storylines right there. Will Power wins the pole, and he did it with a strong run. I watched every one of them, and people they're trying to hit that 233 mark. That's that sweet spot. And boy, there's a couple of them that touched it, but he ran 4 laps at 233, I believe. And I was like, wow, how did he not have the fall off? The tires go away. That third lap, by that third lap, it's starting to get a little slick. And that 4th lap, you're just hoping to have enough to hang on. He ran 4 laps at the 233 mark.
Well, it is an all Penske front row. So McLaughlin, Newgarden, and Power are on the front row. It's the first time that's happened since 1988, and it was Penske that pulled that off back then too. That trio of drivers was Rick Mears, who won the race. Then it was Danny Sullivan. Then it was Al Unser Sr., who that year was the defending champion. So it's the first time that one team has had all 3 spots in a front row since that time, and the second time in track history. They have had the fastest cars this month. Penske obviously has won the race 19 times. Penske obviously now owns the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, literally. As well as the IndyCar Series. They have not had that level of speed, though, the last 4 or 5 months of May. I think this was the first time in 5 or 6 years that Joseph Newgarden was actually in the Fast 12, was in the run for the pole, going to the second day of qualifying. There is also the story of Team Penske without 4 of their race engineers for this event, because they are serving a 2-race suspension because there was an illegal use of what we call the push to pass, a little extra added engine boost that is used at other tracks to be able to, and used on the road course here, to be able to kind of make the racing a bit more exciting and add a bit of strategy, into that. And so you won't see Tim Cindric, who kind of is the head of Team Penske from an operational standpoint. Both Will Power's team and Joseph Newgarden's team are missing a couple of key engineers and a couple of key pieces. So the Penske dominance has been part of the story of May, but there's also a bit of a black mark. And even if sanctions have been handed down, there's always going to be those that say, hey, is Penske somehow doing this again? Once that can gets open, you're not putting the lid back on it. So it's been a Penske-dominated May in terms of good stories and bad. The non-Penske stories, obviously Kyle Larson, qualifying 5th and doing the double, has been tremendous. He is an unbelievable racer. This is still going to be his first IndyCar race. And what you touched on, the focus, the not making a mistake over the course of 800 turns and 200 laps, even for a guy that I might think is the best race car driver in North America in any series, because he runs so much, that's a heck of an ask to say, hey, in your first IndyCar race, go win it. because of his talent, because of the team he's with, McLaren, there is a chance there. Of course, there's a chance. I think that's an awfully big ask. Other names you should know about: Alexander Rossi, who won the race, the Centennial Edition 8 years ago, is the fastest non-Penske qualifier inside of row 2. And even though this has been the rare month where the Ganassi cars have not had that same level of speed, you can never count out Scott Dixon and Alex Palou, even though they are starting middle of row 5 in Alex's case. And for Scott, it is his worst starting place in a 500. He's been doing this for over 2 decades. He's going to start outside of row 7 in 21st. But it's Scott freaking Dixon. He's going to have a chance to win the Indy 500 because while he has won it one time 16 years ago, he is the answer to the trivia question. Who has led the most laps in the history of the Indianapolis 500? The answer to that question is Scott Dixon. So hence, as long as he's in a car there, he's got an opportunity to win the race.
Yeah, that's amazing. And talking about Kyle Larson and doing the double, for those of you that don't know, he is actually a NASCAR champion, normally running into the NASCAR circuit, which he leaves Indianapolis, which he actually did last Sunday, had to hop on a chopper, go jump on a jet and fly to North Wilkesboro for their all-star race. This Sunday, he will do the same, except here he will run an entire 500-mile race. And if he doesn't win, he can then go get on a chopper and a jet. If he does, he's going to be delayed even more.
Right.
And he has to fly to Charlotte for the Coca-Cola 600, which means he's going to have to stay focused for 1,100 miles and most likely about 7 hours of driving.
It's an amazing double. Those that have done it: Tony Stewart, John Andretti, Kurt Busch. I'm probably leaving out a driver or two at this point that have pulled it off, but those are the ones that immediately come to mind. Andretti was the first one that did it in 94. And unfortunately, his car kind of gave out early in terms of the 600. He ran the full length of the race in 94 in terms of the Indy 500. But it's been a few years since somebody has tried it. And for Larson, this is a multiple-year deal. He's going to do it again at least next year as well. And I would hope that what this leads to, there's not a lot of off weekends on the NASCAR circuit. But given the fact that Larson, has that Tony Stewart / Ken Schrader gene, where like if it's a Monday night, he's at a dirt track someplace running anyway.
He was at Kokomo.
Thank you. Last Monday, correct, before they started practice Tuesday.
I believe he flipped a car there, didn't he?
It's a day that ends in Y, so he's going to go race. My guess is that my hope is that, hey, if it comes, hey, let's go do this 3 or 4 times, a year, which again, in theory, gives you a better chance to win the Indy 500 because you got more seat time and more track time.
And how cool is it to have someone like Kyle Larson up at Kokomo?
Right.
I mean, you used to have this happen. You used to have Tony Stewart and Jeff Gordon at the Bloomington Speedway. You've got, daggone it, the kid from Mitchell, Indiana, Chase Briscoe, who's running the NASCAR circuit. I don't think he has any intentions for NASCAR. For IndyCar,
correct.
But it just brings attention, man. You've got Indiana is just such a hub of racing, and it's not just IndyCar. It's dirt tracks, it's NASCAR, it's everything.
Correct. And so it's kind of a double-edged sword. Okay.
Steve Kinser, you got the king of the sprint cars.
It's great that Kyle Larson's running this event, because more NASCAR fans, more casual fans will tune in. I actually think if he wins, it's a bit of a negative. And here, let me give you the 2 reasons why. One, it kind of makes everybody else in the series look bad. How does the guy that is running his first race win the thing? 2, this series is largely based on the recognition the Indy 500 winner gets and being able to go to the next race and promote him. He's not running in Detroit next weekend. He'd be running the NASCAR event. So it's great that he is running the event. I'm not sure IndyCar wants him to win the event, at least the first time through.
Yeah, that who am I quickly thinking? Oh, the guy that won the NASCAR streetcar race in Chicago from Australia.
Correct.
SV.
Yep, Shane Van Gisbergen. Yep.
Yeah, there you go.
Something
Shane
along
Van
those lines. I may have
Gisbergen.
butchered his last name. I know what you're talking about.
No, you got it. And it was like, I was like, wow. But that was such a crazy race. That was almost like an F1 race of sorts, man. They were sliding all over the place. But yeah, it's going to be interesting, man. What's up next for you?
So I've got 3 days of Horizon League baseball on ESPN Plus coming up Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Indy 11 soccer on Saturday night, and then an all day at the racetrack on Sunday. From kind of a high school sports standpoint, the next big thing for me is Indiana Kentucky All-Star Week that comes up starting June 2nd at Scottsburg. Again, there are 5 nights of doubleheaders this year. So the Indiana Juniors, Kentucky Juniors, Saturday or Sunday the 2nd at Scottsburg. The Futures game, which was played at Gamebridge last year, is being played at HSE on Monday, June 3rd. That's Indiana freshmen and sophomores, North versus South. Indiana Juniors versus the Indiana All-Stars at Kokomo on Wednesday, June 5th. Indiana All-Stars at Kentucky on June 7th in Lexington. And then June 8th at Gamebridge Fieldhouse for the girls and boys starting at 5 o'clock. We will stream all of those games on iscsportsnetwork.com and our social media channels. So I'll have a full week of basketball coming up on June 2nd.
What is it, Scottsburg?
Scottsburg is the Indiana Juniors versus the Kentucky Juniors. So Kentucky has one. Their juniors play against Kentucky seniors once, to play against our juniors once. And again, the way that we do the juniors is this. There's a core 6 that plays in both games. Then there's a Southern 6 that plays in that first game and a Northern 6 that plays in the second game. So that way you get 18, 19 kids. Kind of have a chance to try out for the All-Star team next year. So 5 days of doubleheaders, again, starts 1 week from this Sunday, and it's at Scottsburg's Meyer Gymnasium.
Yeah, looking forward to that as this junior team. I'm looking forward to the juniors versus the seniors. That could be a great matchup.
Because the juniors are loaded this year. And let's face it, it is a shallow senior class. You've got Flory, you've got Jack Better, you've got KJ Wyndham going to Northwestern. You've got Avon Haywood going to Butler, but there's not the depth in the senior class that we normally have. The junior class is ridiculous, and several of those kids are playing together on the Indiana Elite squad. They're just torching people in terms of the spring AAU circuit. And all those kids, not all of them, but a good chunk of them are playing on the Indiana Junior All-Star team coming up this summer. So I think those 2 games, the 2nd and 5th, will be very interesting because it might be the rare chance for the juniors to pull off the sweep.
Yes, King Kinzer was the GOAT without question. The greatest sprint car driver of all time. Just lives not too far from the studios here. I go by his house all the time. Greg, appreciate you, my friend. Look forward to seeing you up at the track. I'm got to get a job for you, man. You're doing all the
Eagles,
fun stuff.
I'll enjoy that free tenderloin coming up on Sunday.
You'll remind me of it. Well, daggone it. Looking like that would be a great upset for Lanesville, and good for them if they can do that. So I look forward to that. Thank you very much, sir. Look forward to seeing you soon.
You got it, buddy.
Greg Rakestraw joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Of course, you can follow all the games coming up. Like he said, those are going to be fun games to watch. The Kentucky juniors against the Indiana juniors. I'm interested in that. And I'm the juniors against the seniors. Those are the 2 games I'm interested in more than any of that. We've got to take a quick break. Indiana Sports Beat Radio brought to you by the Fresh Fork. Fresh Fork is where delicious meals at home without the hassle. The Fresh Fork chef-curated ready-made meals delivered right to your doorstep. Proudly fueling IU athletes and now available to you with a menu that's always fresh and diverse, from hearty proteins to fresh salads. The Fresh Fork empowers you to make better food choices without compromising. Order online and let the Fresh Fork help you transform your lifestyle for a healthier way of living today at thefreshforkonline.com. Use promo code RADIO20 and get $20 off. Let me know if you do. Anybody that does any of this, follows any of these sponsors, appreciate it. Let me know and I'll give you a shout out. Appreciate you guys. We're back with more right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
All right, this will be a short one to wrap up here.
That was a fun segment.
Yeah, y'all had a good time, I can tell.
Well, good local stuff to talk about with the 500.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I would like to have gone up there for practice. I really would have liked to have gone there Sunday.
Yeah.
I
It's
did
probably
know
good that you
last-
didn't, because I bet you wouldn't have made it down to Jasper if you went up there on Sunday.
I don't know. I was out on that stupid field for that camp.
Oh yeah. Well,
I
that was
could've
also
gone-
Sunday.
Oh yeah, that's where I was at the damn camp instead. And I didn't plan to be there long. I had planned to go over to the track, and I ended up being there longer than I thought. And by then I'm like, yeah, it's probably too late. I didn't know how long it went that day, and I should have gone on over because they had some good stuff still to come. But yeah, I was worn out after yesterday. I got news for you. Saturday was at the track. Sunday I was on that stinking field. It was so hot. I know the track temperature was like 120. I don't know what the turf temperature was, but it was up there. Definitely up there. Big Ten baseball tournament today. Indiana, Purdue. Rocking
That's
it.
right.
It actually starts in about 35 minutes. I can't say that, but
Yeah.
there we go. Got you down to small. Indiana taking on Purdue, Ohio State, Nebraska, and Penn State versus Illinois. I guess this is a double elimination tournament.
It is, yes. All right, here we go.
Your one-stop shop for high-quality meats, bakery items, and now fresh seafood.
Real quick, this will only be about a 3-minute segment. So
Products around and everything you need to make a gourmet meal at home. Or pick out a tomahawk steak or a grouper filet and enjoy it cooked to perfection in Chop Shop Steakhouse. Chop Shop, Market and Table, a part of the Wild Food Group, is your butcher, baker, and fish house, no matter where you live.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville and Evansville. Pizza, burgers, beer. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat here on this Wednesday. Appreciate you being with us. It's been a fun one so far. Big Ten baseball tournament starts today. Indiana, Purdue with the first pitch as they go against each other. That will be followed by Ohio State versus Nebraska, which is followed by Penn State versus Illinois. I'll have to look it up, but I'm assuming this is a double elimination like most of the tournaments like this. Only 6 teams in it. Out in Omaha. But Indiana, fresh off of a series win against Purdue, but we'll see how the one-game matchup goes as they take on the Boilers. And you can, I'm assuming, catch that on the Big Ten Network. I'll have to pull that up, like I said. But if so, something enjoyable to put in the background for you. Alan, we've missed you as well. Great fun day today with Mike DeCourcy, Greg Rakestraw, Chronic Hoosier. Greg doing all kinds of triple duties as usual. Lanesville taking on Floyd in girls tennis. Man, that's dangerous when you got a team like that is coming off of a win and they have nothing but confidence. But good for the Eagles. I'm no bias. It's just, hey, congratulations to them. But yeah, it's this exciting Indy 500, man. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to being out there for a show or two. Hopefully we'll be out there Thursday and Friday to see what all's going on. but looking forward to that. We've got tons of basketball that is still coming up with the AAU action that will continue into July for the championships of EYBL and the 3SSB Adidas circuit. And Indiana Elite, man, can they become the latest Indiana team to win one of those titles? They're undefeated right now in 3SSB play at 13-0. They're actually like 19-0 overall, but they're solid. They've got a great point guard in Mark Zachary. They've got a great shooting guard in Braylon Mullins. You've got a great wing in Trent Sisley and the man in the middle at Malachi Moreno. So they are set up, but we'll keep up with all of that and more. And we're back tomorrow, of course. Dylan Sin from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette, Kyle Neddenrip from the Indy Star, and Rick Bozich back in his slot as everything is kind of settled down. And we'll talk about the PGA and Scotty Scheffler from last week. I'm sure he was there for that. Man, I can't thank you guys enough. As always, we're grateful to you for being with us. It's always a blast, and you make it that way. Without you, we would no reason for us to be here. Thanks to John for keeping us between the white lines. Until tomorrow, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.